Madelyn Carter had no idea she was about to spill champagne on a billionaire. The tray in her hand wobbled as the yacht shifted against a sudden wave, and one of the flutes tipped, sending a cold splash of sparkling liquid straight onto the crisp white shirt of the man standing by the bar. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," she gasped, eyes wide as she scrambled for a napkin. The man looked down at the wet fabric clinging to his chest, then up at her with the calmest, most unreadable expression she'd ever seen. "You just made this party a lot more interesting." Madelyn blinked, stunned. He was tall, stupidly tall. His dark hair was swept back messily like he didn't care, and his jawline looked like it had been carved by someone who took their job very seriously. But it was his eyes that froze her deep, sharp, and watching her like she was the only thing on this yacht that mattered. "Are you hurt?" she stammered. "Only my pride," he said, and then, to her horror, he smiled. He actually smiled. "I'll get napkins." She turned, flustered, but his hand caught her wrist gently. "Wait," he said. "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Madelyn." "Madelyn," he repeated, like he was testing how it sounded in his mouth. "Pretty name. I'm Damon." "Just Damon." She gave him a tight, polite smile and tried to pull her hand from his grip. I own the yacht." She froze. "What?" she said, not sure she heard right. "I'm Damon Archer," he said casually, as if it wasn't a name that made half of Manhattan's real estate developers sweat. "This is my party." Madelyn's stomach dropped. She'd met plenty of rich jerks during her catering jobs, but this one, he wasn't just rich, he was him. The Damon Archer. Billionaire hotel empire, known for flipping entire city blocks, and she just poured champagne on his chest. She finally managed to free her wrist. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Archer, that was completely my fault." He shrugged like he didn't care. "Call me Damon and don't apologize." "I've never seen someone move that fast in heels. Impressive." "I should really get back to work," she muttered, cheeks burning. He tilted his head. "I'd rather you stayed." Madelyn blinked again. "You'd rather I stayed? I'm not a fan of half the people here," he said, glancing around the deck at the designer suits and fake laughter. "But you're real." She didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever said something like that to her, especially not someone who probably had an elevator in his penthouse. She took a cautious step back. "I'm the help." "You're a human being," he said, eyes never leaving hers. "And I like talking to you." Before she could respond, her boss barked her name from across the deck, motioning to the other side of the yacht. Madelyn gave Damon a quick, apologetic smile. "I have to go. I'll be here," he said. "Don't keep me waiting too long." The rest of the night was a blur of serving crab cakes and dodging drunk hedge fund managers, but she could feel Damon's stare follow her everywhere she went, not in a creepy way but focused, curious, like he was trying to figure her out. At one point, she caught him watching her as he refused a drink from a woman in a glittering red gown. The woman leaned close to whisper something in his ear, but he barely reacted. His attention was somewhere else on her. Madelyn told herself she was imagining it. Later, when the party started to wind down and the guests filtered back into their cars or helicopters or whatever billionaires used to get around, she was gathering empty glasses near the stern when a low voice spoke behind her. "Let me take you home." She turned, startled. Damon stood there, hands in his pockets, the city lights behind him making his silhouette look impossibly cinematic. "I can take the subway, thanks," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "You serve drinks on a yacht but take the subway home? You serve drinks on a yacht and try to flirt with the staff," she shot back. He grinned. "Touché." Madelyn shook her head, amused despite herself. "Seriously, I'm fine." "Then let me drive you," he said. "Just a ride." "Nothing else." She hesitated. There was something about him too confident, too smooth, but also sincere. And she'd had enough of fake tonight. "Fine," she said, "but only if you promise not to talk about your money." He held his hand to his chest. "Scout's honor." They rode in silence for the first few minutes. His car, of course, it was a sleek black Aston Martin, smelled like leather and faint cologne, not overpowering, just expensive. She glanced at him. "So what's it like, owning half of New York?" He looked over at her. Lonely? She didn't expect that. You're not married, she asked before she could stop herself. Nope. Girlfriend? Nope. Why not? He paused. Hard to find someone who wants me for me. She looked out the window. Yeah. I get that. When they pulled up to her building a humble walk-up in Brooklyn, he walked her to the door. Thanks for the ride, she said, fumbling for her keys. Thanks for the spill, he replied. She laughed. That's a new one. He stepped closer, not in a pushy way, just close. I want to see you again, he said quietly. Madelyn froze. Why? Because you're the only person I've met in years who wasn't trying to impress me. I spilled a drink on you. Exactly, she stared at him, heart pounding. I don't date billionaires, he smiled. Good. I don't date caterers, she blinked. What? I date people, he said simply, and I want to date you. Madelyn looked up at him, his dark eyes steady, his voice calm, like he wasn't just flipping her world upside down. Let me earn it, he said. One dinner, no yacht, no staff. Just us, she hesitated. Then nodded. Okay, she whispered. He smiled, turned, and walked back to the car. Madelyn stood in the doorway long after he drove away, her heart still racing. She had no idea how this happened. She was just serving drinks at a yacht party. And now the billionaire who owned it wanted her. Madelyn stood outside the bistro, staring at the door like it might vanish if she blinked. The sign above it was unassuming, just black lettering on pale wood, but the name was enough to make her heart race. La Rue. It wasn't listed on any food blogs or apps, but rumor among high-end caterers said it didn't need to be. The clientele didn't find it. They were invited. She clutched her coat tighter around her ribs. It wasn't just the cold. She was nervous. Damon had sent a car again, sleek, discreet, with a driver who knew her name before she introduced herself. She'd almost told him not to bother, that she could get there on her own. But part of her was curious. Not about the restaurant, about him. Inside, the lighting was low and warm, the kind that turned white tablecloths golden and made everything feel softer, quieter. Madelyn spotted Damon at a back table, seated alone, no phone in hand, no glass of wine, just waiting. You look like you're thinking about running, he said as she approached. I was, she replied, slipping into the seat across from him. He nodded once, like he appreciated her honesty. The waiter arrived without being summoned, placing a bottle of red between them. Damon didn't glance at the label. Tell me what you like, he said, and don't say you're not picky. I'm not, she started, then caught herself. He raised an eyebrow. Fine, I like pasta, but not the kind with truffle foam or edible flowers, just real food. Good, he said. I hate foam, she laughed, surprised. I thought people like you were legally required to like foam. I've broken worse laws, he replied. Madelyn tilted her head. Such as? He didn't answer. Instead, he poured her a glass. Let's eat first, then I'll confess my crimes. Dinner came quickly. Handmade tagliatelle with a sauce that would have made her cry if she weren't trying so hard not to be impressed. Damon asked questions about her job, her favorite neighborhoods, the last book she read. But he never asked where she was from or what her parents did or any of the questions people asked when they were trying to slot you into a category. He watched her like he was collecting details only he could see. She set down her fork. All right, tell me something real. No smooth lines. No charm, he leaned back. My mother hasn't spoken to me in 5 years. Madelyn blinked. Why? She thinks I abandoned the family business. I didn't. I just didn't want to sell perfume for the rest of my life. You were supposed to inherit a perfume company, he nodded once. She wanted me at the head of the empire, but I wanted to build something different, and you did, she said, at a cost. Madelyn looked at him differently then, not as a man who owned skyscrapers, as someone who'd walked away from safety to chase something bigger. He poured himself a little more wine but didn't drink it. Your turn, she hesitated. I haven't spoken to my sister in 3 years. What happened? She got engaged. To my ex. Damon's jaw tightened slightly. That's brutal. I wasn't mad they got together, she said. I was mad she lied about it, hid it for months, like I couldn't handle the truth. Did you love him? I thought I did, but I think I just wanted someone. A silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just full. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope. "This is for you," she frowned. "What is it? Open it." Inside was a folded card, handwritten, a reservation. For a table at her restaurant she'd never be able to afford on her own, but the name wasn't what struck her, it was the date, 2 weeks from now. "You're assuming I'll want to see you again," she said. "I'm hoping." She tucked the card back inside. "You're very confident." "I'm persistent." Madelyn leaned forward slightly. "What is this, Damon? Really? Are you just bored?" "I don't do things out of boredom," he said, eyes steady. "I asked you here because I wanted to know who you were when you weren't balancing a tray and apologizing for taking up space." She didn't reply right away. "Then, I'm not used to this." "I don't want you to get used to anything. I want it to feel new." Every time. They left the restaurant without dessert. He didn't try to hold her hand, didn't reach for her waist, but when they reached her building, he turned to her on the sidewalk. "I'm not going to kiss you tonight." She raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" "Because I want it to matter when I do." She looked up at him, heart thudding in her chest. "You're making this very difficult, I know." Then he stepped back toward the waiting car. "Damon," she said before he could open the door. He turned. "I don't trust easily," he nodded. "I don't expect you to. Just don't lie to yourself about what this is." She said nothing as he got in and pulled away. Inside her apartment, she sat on the edge of her bed, the envelope still in her hand. This wasn't a game, and that terrified her more than any lie ever could. Madelyn stared at the gilded elevators of the Archer Hotel, her reflection flickering in the polished brass. She'd told herself coming here was a mistake, that accepting Damon's invitation to his hotel's opening gala would be stepping into something too big, too blinding. But she was already wearing the dress he'd sent, black silk, no tag, no receipt, just a delicate note in the box that read, "For when you're ready to be seen." She wasn't ready. But she was here. As the elevator doors opened, she stepped out into a hallway lined with dark marble and soft lighting. Music floated down from the rooftop above, elegant and low. She followed it, her heels clicking quietly over the floor. The rooftop was breathtaking. String lights crisscrossed overhead like constellations, and a live quartet played near the glowing edge of the infinity pool. The skyline stretched endlessly behind the glass railings, and the air smelled faintly of roses and something more expensive she couldn't name. Heads turned when she entered, but not because of her. All eyes were already on Damon. He stood near the edge of the crowd, flanked by men in tailored tuxedos and women in diamonds. But when he saw her, the murmured conversations around him faded. He excused himself without hesitation and crossed the rooftop, his expression unreadable, his gaze locked on her like she was the only thing that mattered. "You came," he said, stopping just close enough that she could hear him over the music. "You made it difficult not to," she replied, scanning the crowd behind him. "This place looks like a billionaire's dream." "It's my reality," he said, "but you don't have to be impressed by any of it." She tilted her chin. "What if I'm more interested in why I'm here than where?" His mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile, but something quieter. "Because I wanted you to see the world I live in, not to impress you, to include you." "Include me," she echoed. "In what exactly?" "In the parts I don't let anyone into." Before she could respond, a tall woman in a red satin gown approached them without hesitation. "Damon, Senator Whitmore just arrived. He's asking for you." Madelyn glanced between them. The woman didn't look at her twice. Damon's jaw tensed slightly. "Tell him I'll be with him in 10 minutes. The woman hesitated, then walked away. Madelyn folded her arms. "Is she always that warm?" "She's the hotel's VP of operations," Damon said. "She handles things I don't have patience for," she seemed. "Territorial? She's not." "And you've never—" "No," he said firmly. "She's not the story here." Madelyn exhaled slowly. "Then tell me the story." He reached into his jacket and pulled something from his inner pocket, a small envelope sealed in gold wax. "What is it with you and envelopes?" "This one's different," he said. "Open it later, after tonight." She studied him. "Why not now?" "Because I want tonight to be about us, not anything else." She slid the envelope into her clutch without another word. The next hour was a blur of champagne, introductions, and names she couldn't remember. Damon stayed close but never possessive. When he spoke to others, his hand remained lightly at her back, steadying. When he laughed, it was muted, reserved, different from the version of him she'd seen at the yacht. Later, he led her to a quieter corner of the rooftop where the lights were dimmer and the city stretched out in silence. "I need to ask you something," he said. She looked up at him, heart already bracing. "I'm hosting a charity event next weekend. Black tie, very public, I want you to come." "Why me?" "Because the people I bring to events like that, they're usually part of the game, you're not." "You want to show me off?" "No," he said. "I want to take you seriously." She blinked, caught off guard by the weight in his voice. "I don't want this to be a few dinners and polite conversations," he continued. "I want more, but I won't push you into anything." Madelyn looked out at the skyline. "I don't know how to be part of your world." "Then help me build one where we both belong." She turned back to him. "That sounds like something people say when they're trying to win." "I'm not trying to win," he said quietly. "I'm trying to be honest." She didn't know what to say. But her hand found his, and she didn't let go. By the time she returned home that night, the stars were fading. She stood by her window, clutch in her lap, and finally opened the envelope. Inside was a single line written in his handwriting. "When you're ready, I'll be waiting." And beneath it, a key, not to his hotel, to a building she didn't recognize. She stared at it, heart thudding. Whatever this was, it wasn't casual. And Damon Archer didn't play small. The key burned a silent question in Madelyn's coat pocket for 3 days before she used it. It led to a brick building in Tribeca, tucked behind a row of boutiques and hidden under a canopy of ivy. The door opened into a wide, sun-drenched loft with floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed beams, and a quiet stillness that felt unfinished, personal. She stepped inside slowly, her boots quiet on the hardwood floor. There was no staff, no security, no trace of Damon except for a navy jacket draped over the back of a chair and a half-finished coffee mug near the window. "You came," Damon said from behind her, his voice low and calm. "I didn't know what this place was," she said, turning to face him. "It's where I go when I want everything to stop moving," he replied. "It's mine, but no one else has ever had a key." Madelyn looked around again. There were no photos on the walls, no art, just a sketchpad on the counter and a well-worn leather chair by the window. "Why give me one?" "Because I want you to see the parts of me I don't dress up." She glanced at the sketchpad, then back at him. "You draw blueprints," he said. "Mostly buildings I'll never construct, just ideas." "Why show me this now?" He stepped forward, hands in his pockets. "Because I'm done keeping my life in compartments. You've already seen the curated version. I want you to see the version I live with." "You trust me that much?" "I've never trusted anyone this much." Madelyn exhaled slowly. "I don't know what to do with that." "You don't have to do anything," he said. "I just want you to know this isn't a phase for me." She looked out the window, watching the way sunlight spilled across the rooftops. "I've spent most of my life keeping people out, not because I wanted to. Because letting them in always meant losing myself in the process." "I don't want you to lose anything," he said quietly. "I want you to gain something." Madelyn turned to him. "Then tell me, what does this look like in 6 months? When the headlines fade and people stop whispering about the girl who landed Damon Archer," he didn't hesitate. "It looks like us, still together, still figuring it out, but on equal ground. You've spent your entire life surrounded by people who follow your lead." "I don't want a follower. I want a partner." She searched his face. "Do you even know how to let someone stand beside you?" "I do now." Madelyn took a step closer. "Then prove it." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded document. He handed it to her without a word. She unfolded it slowly. It was a lease. Her name was on it. "So what is this?" she asked. "A space of your own," he said. "Right below this loft, renovated, private, yours." Her breath caught. "You want me to live beneath you. I want you to have freedom, independence. Not because I'm giving it to you, because you've earned it. And I want to be near you without owning any part of you." Madelyn stared at the paper, the lines of her name printed beside his signature. "This is insane," he nodded. "It is. But so is pretending this is ordinary." She folded the paper again and held it tightly. I don't need your money, I know, he said. That's why I'm offering something else, security without strings. She looked up at him, her chest tightening. Why me? Because you make me honest, he said. And I've spent too long being everything but. That night, she didn't return to Brooklyn. She stayed in the new space, her space. She watched the city from the window and let herself believe, for the first time, that maybe this life wasn't something she'd stumbled into. Maybe it was something she'd chosen. 3 weeks later, Damon stood beside her at the foundation ceremony for the Archer Arts Center, a project he'd been quietly funding for years. His name was on the building, but when he spoke at the podium, he didn't talk about himself. He talked about Madelyn. He didn't say her name, but everyone knew. He spoke about resilience, about finding clarity in unexpected places, about building something stronger from the pieces you thought were broken. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed and cameras lowered, he turned to her. Come with me. She followed him through the building he'd helped bring to life. Behind a locked door, he led her into a quiet, echoing gallery. The walls were bare except for one. On it hung a single sketch. It was rough, pencil on parchment, but unmistakable. It was her. Not posed, not styled, just her sitting by a window, barefoot, looking out. Madelyn stared at it, her throat tight. When did you draw this? The night you left the gala, he said. I couldn't sleep until I got it down. She turned toward him. You never showed me this. I was waiting. For what? He stepped closer, pulled something from his jacket and dropped to one knee. Madelyn froze. Not because I need to rush this, he said, opening a velvet box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, a single stone set on gold. Not because you complete me, because with you I'm finally whole. Her hands trembled. You don't have to do this. I know, he said, but I want to. Every part of me wants this. You, us. A life where we stop pretending we're not already in love. She dropped to her knees in front of him, her voice breaking. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, his hand steady, his eyes never leaving hers. They didn't stand for a long time. They just stayed there, knees touching, breathing the same air, hearts pounding in tandem. That night, Damon didn't take her to a penthouse or a private jet. He took her home, to the loft above her new apartment. To the space he'd once kept for himself, now cracked open, reshaped by what they'd built together. And in the quiet hours before dawn, as the city slept below them, he whispered something no one had ever said to her before. You weren't just the best part of that night, he said. You were the start of every good thing after it. And this time, she didn't question it, she believed him. Madelyn adjusted the delicate cuff on her wrist as the driver opened the door of the black vintage Rolls-Royce. The early spring air was crisp, the kind that hinted at the warmth to come, but still carried the edge of winter's retreat. She stepped out onto the gravel drive of the Archer estate, an ivy-clad manor tucked away in the Hudson Valley, far from the rhythm of the city. She hadn't expected Damon to bring her here so soon. He hadn't even told her they were going until they were halfway out of Manhattan, his hand resting casually on her knee, his expression unreadable. Now, as she stared at the sprawling house with its slate roof and towering pines, she understood why he'd waited. You grew up here, she asked as he came around and offered her his hand. For a while, he said, until I didn't want him anymore. Her fingers curled around his. Why now? Because there are things I need to put to rest, he said. And I want you with me when I do. Inside, the house was still. The foyer smelled faintly of cedar and old books. A grand staircase curved upward and portraits lined the walls, men in suits, women in pearls. Legacies. Expectations. Madelyn followed Damon through a set of double doors into a sunlit conservatory. A woman sat in a wheelchair near the windows, a cashmere wrap around her shoulders, her hair a halo of silver. She didn't glance up when they entered. Damon didn't hesitate. Mother, the woman's voice was soft but sharp. You brought someone. Madelyn stepped forward, pulse steady. Madelyn Carter, she said. It's nice to meet you. The woman replied, eyes never leaving the garden beyond the glass. I assume you're not here to discuss perfume. No, ma'am. Damon moved beside Madelyn but didn't touch her. I'm not here to argue. You made your choice years ago, and I'm living with it, he said, but I came to tell you something. His mother finally looked at him. Her eyes were the same shade of gray as his. Go on, I'm getting married. There was no gasp, no change in her posture, just a pause. To her, she asked, glancing at Madelyn once briefly. Yes. Then I suppose congratulations are in order. Madelyn waited for something more, a blessing. A rejection, but nothing came. Damon's voice was calm. You don't have to approve, but I wanted you to know. His mother's gaze drifted back to the garden. Your father would have hated this. I know, Damon said. That's why I'm doing it differently. They left without another word. Back in the car, Madelyn rested her head against the window as the trees blurred past. You didn't have to take me there, she said. I did, he replied. If she was ever going to meet the woman I'll spend my life with, it had to be on my terms. Madelyn didn't speak again until they reached the city. She turned to him, her voice low. You never asked me, he looked puzzled. What? You never asked me to marry you, Damon blinked. I gave you the ring. You didn't ask. They were stopped at a traffic light. He took her hand slowly, turning it palm up in his. Madelyn Carter, he said, voice steady. Will you marry me? She smiled. Yes. But only if we can do it our way. I wouldn't have it any other way. They married in the garden of the arts center. Damon had built the same one where he first showed her the sketch that started everything. There were no tabloid cameras, no red carpet. Just 100 people they loved, a string quartet, and a breeze that carried the scent of lilacs through the air. Madelyn wore a dress made by a designer friend she'd met during a catering job. Damon wore no tie. He didn't need one. His eyes never left her the entire ceremony. Afterward, instead of a reception, they led their guests through the center's new gallery, the first exhibition curated entirely by local artists. Each wall held colors, textures, stories like theirs. Real, unvarnished, beautiful. Later that night, as they stood on the rooftop of their Tribeca loft, the city glittering around them, Damon wrapped his arms around her from behind. I've been thinking, he said quietly, dangerous. I want to start something new with you. She turned in his arms. Another building? No, he said. A foundation for kids who want to create, sketch, build, design, but don't have the resources. Madelyn's heart swelled. You mean it? I want the first workshop to be in your name. She blinked back, the sudden sting in her eyes. Then I want the second in yours. He kissed her, slow and deep, the city humming below them like a lullaby. Years passed, but the rhythm never dulled. They traveled to places Damon had only seen in passing, markets in Morocco, art studios in Lisbon, cliffside towns in Croatia. Madelyn never stopped sketching, and Damon never stopped building, but they did it together now. She turned the lower level of their loft into an open studio for young artists. He made sure no one ever had to pay to use it. Their home was filled with laughter, with canvases drying on windowsills, with music played badly but enthusiastically on an old upright piano Damon insisted on buying on their 5th anniversary. They sat on the same rooftop with a bottle of wine and no plans. Madelyn leaned into him. Did you ever think this would be your life? He kissed the top of her head. Not until the night you spilled champagne on me, she laughed. You're never letting that go. Never, he said. It was the best accident of my life. Beneath the stars, wrapped in the warmth of love they'd built piece by piece, they stayed in silence for a long time. No more questions, no more proving, just the quiet certainty of forever.